But first, Labor is tying itself in knots over the Israel-Gaza war, with yo-yoing policies, confusion and mixed messaging, and at the same time alienating Jewish Australians. After endorsing Palestinian statehood, Penny Wong today was no clearer on her position.
What is your position on Palestinian statehood?
Well, we've had a long-standing position that two states, the state of Israel and a Palestinian state, is the only pathway to enduring peace in the region.
This week it seemed that you were trying to front-run the argument by talking about a Palestinian statehood.
Look, what I did was set out the reasons for why a Palestinian state is important for Israel's security. And I made the point that this was a matter being discussed in the international community. I mean, the change in foreign policy position actually isn't with the government. The change in foreign policy position is with Peter Dutton.
Minister, what is your position? Because Hamas doesn't want peace. It wants one state, its own terrorist state, and to wipe out Israel. It started this war on October 7 when its terrorists murdered more than 1,000 Jews and continue to hold 130 captive, many though are feared dead. Any talk of a Palestinian statehood just 6 months after those attacks is naive, premature and dangerous. Yet Labor ministers are ignoring Wong's own inflammatory commentary and, predictably, pointing the finger at Peter Dutton.
If you want to be the Prime Minister of Australia, your job is to work to bring the country together.
I think Peter's, he's got to make his points, that's his job. But I think that he should work with the Prime Minister to call out inflammatory language here rather than throw sort of Kero on the bonfire of hate.
Really? Peter Dutton has proven himself as the only leader in this country willing to take a hardline, no-nonsense stance on anti-Semitism. Now, he has been criticised for comparing responses to the Opera House pro-Palestine protest and Port Arthur massacre. And make no mistake, both are very different scenarios, very different. But in terms of leadership during times of crises, Albanese could actually learn a lot from John Howard. Port Arthur was a polarising moment for John Howard. Gun control reform caused the former PM grief. It was unpopular among members of his own coalition. But what did he do? He stood up for what was right. He even made a point of confronting the anti-gun control rallies.
I'm sorry about that, but there is no other way. There is no other way.
And here he was in an interview with Sky News on the 25th anniversary of Port Arthur in 2021, explaining why he did just that.
I saw that as part and parcel of my responsibility as a Prime Minister to deal with people who had deeply held views.
He took the moral high ground and showed extraordinary leadership. Anthony Albanese could have used the Opera House incident as a momentous, courageous moment to set the tone for Australia's response to the war, a hard-line response.
I think the Prime Minister missed his opportunity, as John Howard grasped in 1996 with the tragedy of the Port Arthur disaster, where it was a moment of national significance. John Howard spoke out against it. He stood up for our country and he changed the course of history. I think through Anthony Albanese's weakness and his decision not to speak up against the actions that we saw on October 9, I think that has allowed a level of anti-Semitism in our country to flourish.
Instead, Albo has cowered and pandered to Labor's socialist left faction, while Wong is floating ridiculous propositions. And the only winner from the government's confusing position is Hamas.
If you're the Hamas leadership, you are only taking encouragement right now from what Australia is saying and doing.
Everyone wants to see an end to this war, but Labor will pay a price if it persists with politics instead of good policy and, most importantly, strong leadership.